Jessica settled down at her usual table, prepared for an evening of gastronomic pleasure. Her presence was imposing, and she delighted in the attention she received from the restaurant staff. However, the tranquility was interrupted by a growing tension coming from the bar. With a sharp eye, Jessica noticed an unusual movement. The air seemed electrified as the voices increased in intensity. Jessica, always on the lookout for something to spice up her nights, realized she was about to witness a confrontation that could change everything. She couldn't wait to see how the situation would play out. Jessica, a woman of great social stature, slid across the polished marble floor like a queen inspecting her domain. The waiter, impeccably dressed, led her to a privileged table overlooking the city skyline. Soft lights enhanced the sophisticated decor, while the murmur of conversations and the clinking of cutlery created an atmosphere of exclusivity. Jessica, used to being the center of attention, felt in her element. Every detail seemed designed to please her discerning senses. At the Luminaria Michelin-starred restaurant, the soft lights and exquisite ambience promised an unforgettable evening for its visitors. Among them was Jessica, a woman who always liked to feel in control. But that night, something was about to change. A simple meal would turn into a landmark event, revealing hidden truths and forcing unexpected confrontations. The stage was set for a series of events that no one could have predicted. Sitting at her favorite table, Jessica watched the other patrons, silently judging each of them. She prided herself on her ability to perceive social subtleties and maintain a posture of superiority. However, something unexpected was about to happen. The restaurant's facade of tranquility would be shattered by a wave of tension. What started as an ordinary night would turn into an unforgettable lesson for Jessica and everyone around her. Have you ever witnessed a time when someone underestimated another, only to face monumental consequences? Our story begins in an upscale restaurant where prejudice and arrogance collide, leading to a surprising twist in the heart of the city. Jessica, hearing his story, began to see beyond appearances. Marcus was a living example of resilience and determination, someone who turned adversity into opportunity. Marcus's true identity was a powerful reminder that appearances can be deceptive. He had built his empire with intelligence, hard work, and a clear vision. Jessica, accustomed to judging people by the surface, began to understand the depth and complexity of the man in front of her. Jessica realized that Marcus was not there to get revenge, but to teach a valuable lesson. His true identity was proof that power and dignity were not reserved only for those with evident privileges. Marcus had earned his place in the world, and now he was challenging Jessica to reconsider her own beliefs and attitudes. Marcus showed documents that proved his acquisitions, including significant investments in Jessica's own pharmaceutical company. She was perplexed. How could she have ignored someone so influential? The revelation was not only shocking but deeply humbling. Jessica felt exposed and vulnerable, something she rarely experienced. Jessica, feeling the depth of the impact, began to realize the importance of what Marcus was doing. He wasn't just sharing his story but offering her a chance at redemption. The revelation was a call to action, a challenge for Jessica to change and use her privilege for something more meaningful. Marcus, the waiter she saw in the restaurant, was now in the center of the room, dressed in a perfectly fitted suit. The tension and anger she had seen before had faded, replaced by an authoritative calm. With surprising calmness, Marcus explained that his goal was not to humiliate Jessica, but to open her eyes to the realities he and many others faced. He wanted her to understand that power and privilege came with responsibilities. Marcus's revelation was a watershed moment for Jessica, challenging everything she believed in. Jessica was confused and intrigued. How could a simple waiter invite her to such an exclusive place? Jessica's mind swirled with questions. Who was Marcus really? Why would he invite her? And more importantly, should she accept the invitation? As he spoke, Jessica felt a mixture of shame and admiration grow inside her. She began to see Marcus not as an adversary, but as a man who had more strength than she had ever imagined. The meeting in the penthouse was eye-opening for both of them. Marcus didn't need to prove anything to Jessica, but he wanted her to see the truth. And for Jessica, it was a moment of clarity where she began to question her own beliefs and prejudices. The clock struck 7:30 p.m. when Jessica found herself in front of the doors of the penthouse suite. It wasn't a decision so much as a compulsion. Something deep inside her longed for answers. With a gentle touch, the doorbell rang and the door opened, revealing a very different world from the restaurant below. Curiosity was unbearable, and the meticulous order of her night was suddenly thrown into chaos. Jessica decided that she could not refuse such an invitation, if only to satisfy her burning curiosity. Marcus calmly explained that he owned the restaurant where he worked, and his presence there was not accidental but part of a meticulous plan. Jessica felt the ground open up beneath her feet. Marcus invited Jessica to sit in a lavishly decorated living area. He offered her a glass of champagne, and they toasted to unexpected encounters. Jessica, still trying to process the situation, noticed the absence of any hostility in Marcus. Instead, there was a calm amusement in his eyes. Jessica, trying to regain her composure, accepted Marcus's offer of champagne. As the conversation progressed, Marcus revealed a deep understanding of the world of business and technology acquisitions. Each word was like a piece of a puzzle, assembling a very different picture from the one Jessica had of him. The shock began to set in. This man, whom she had disdained as a simple waiter, was actually a business tycoon. As Jessica finished her meal, she felt strangely unsatisfied. The evening, which began with a promise of pleasure and control, ended with a feeling of emptiness and doubt. Marcus's departure was a reminder that the world was more complex than she was willing to admit. Inside the penthouse, Jessica was greeted by an ambience of opulent luxury. Thick carpets silenced her footsteps while the scent of exotic orchids wafted through the air. Huge windows displayed the city below, and original paintings adorned the walls. This was not a borrowed luxury, but a carefully curated space with a collector's eye. Emily watched as the other customers resumed their conversations as if nothing had happened. But for her, the night was marked. The scene she witnessed could not simply be erased. There was something about Marcus, something about his dignity and strength, that made her uneasy. "Miss Clark," he greeted, his voice sending a shiver down Jessica's spine. The conversation shifted to deeper topics. Marcus spoke about the struggles he faced as a black man in a society that often underestimated him. He shared his experiences of discrimination, not just in the restaurant, but in all areas of his life. Jessica, for the first time, began to understand the depth of his resilience. Marcus was not there to seek revenge. He wanted Jessica to see the world through his eyes, to understand the invisible barriers he had to overcome. The night that began with arrogance and prejudice was turning into a lesson in humility and understanding. As the night progressed, Marcus revealed more about his true identity. He explained that he owned several businesses and that the restaurant was only a small part of his enterprise. Jessica was astonished to realize the extent of his success. The image of a simple waiter crumbled as Marcus exposed his true nature. As Jessica finished her meal, she felt strangely unsatisfied. The evening, which began with a promise of pleasure and control, ended with a feeling of emptiness and doubt. Marcus's departure was a reminder that the world was more complex than she was willing to admit. Marcus's dignified exit left an impression she couldn't ignore. Marcus, as he left, did not look back. He knew he had left a mark. The fight for dignity and respect was not easy, but he was determined to continue. Leaving the restaurant was just a small step in his journey, and he was ready to take on the challenges that would come next. Jessica enjoyed the rest of her meal. A new waiter approached her table. He handed her a thick cream envelope, the surface of which shone in the light of the chandelier. Jessica's name was written in elegant handwriting, more appropriate for a wedding invitation than a restaurant. Intrigued, she opened the envelope, revealing a card of thick ivory paper. In the center was the name Marcus, followed by the words, "Pleased to invite you," and an address of a luxurious penthouse suite, scheduled for 8 p.m. Jessica had always prided herself on her ability to control the situation and people around her. But that night, Marcus's presence challenged that sense of control. He didn't behave as she expected. and it bothered her deeply. The indifference she displayed was just a facade. As the night wore on, Jessica began to question her own attitudes and beliefs more deeply. What did it really mean to have power, and how did it affect others around her? These questions echoed in her mind, starting an inner journey that she could not foresee. Marcus, as he left the restaurant, couldn't help but notice Jessica's look of triumph. However, he was not shaken. He knew that people like her saw the world through a lens of superiority and prejudice. But Marcus had bigger plans, and the humiliation of that night would be just one chapter in his story. Outside, in the cold of the night, Marcus took a deep breath, feeling his anger and frustration dissipate. He wasn't just a waiter. He had worked hard to get to where he was, and that night only strengthened his resolve to fight against the injustices he faced daily. Jessica, back at the restaurant, continued her evening as if nothing had happened. The arrival of a new waiter, equally impeccable, brought her a new sense of comfort. She indulged in the pleasures of the meal, trying to forget the disturbing scene she witnessed. However, Jessica's indifference was only superficial. Inside, she struggled with conflicting feelings. Marcus's dignity, even in the face of insults, left a mark. She didn't want to admit it, but something inside her had changed. The night, which had once seemed perfect, was now tainted by a shadow of doubt. Marcus left a void in the restaurant. The atmosphere, once charged with tension, returned to its usual state of quiet sophistication. However, for Jessica, something was different. Marcus's dignified exit left an impression she couldn't ignore. Jessica watched as the other customers resumed their conversations as if nothing had happened. But for her, the night was marked. The scene she witnessed could not simply be erased. There was something about Marcus, something about his dignity and strength that made her uneasy. Marcus was not alone in his struggle. There were others like him who also faced prejudice and discrimination. They supported each other, creating a network of resilience and strength. The night at the restaurant would be another story to share, a reminder of why they continued to fight. As he walked away from the restaurant, Marcus knew there was an opportunity waiting for him. The public humiliation he suffered would not be in vain. He was determined to use that experience as fuel to achieve something greater, and Jessica unknowingly had become a key piece in his plan. As the night continued, Jessica tried to ignore the growing discomfort. She had it all: status, wealth, power, and she shouldn't care about a simple waiter. Yet the bar scene continued to haunt her, planting doubts she couldn't shake. The night that began as an opportunity to reassert her social dominance was turning into something very different. Jessica didn't know it, but that night would mark the beginning of a profound change in her life. Something was about to happen that would challenge all of her beliefs. As Marcus retreated, Jessica felt a wave of triumph mingled with contempt. "It suits him well," she muttered to herself, pleased to have witnessed the humiliation of someone she considered inferior. She attacked her meal with renewed vigor, savoring the feeling of power. However, something began to bother her. The image of Marcus maintaining his dignity in the face of so many insults did not leave her mind. Why did she care? He was just a waiter, someone below her in the social hierarchy. But there was something about his posture that made her question her own attitudes. Jessica, though tempted to intervene, preferred to observe. Marcus, with a steady gaze, met each insult with a calmness that surprised everyone. He knew he was being judged not only by the client but by everyone present. The dignity of his response contrasted sharply with the violence of the client, leaving a deep impression on Jessica. She had always reveled in other people's dramas, but seeing Marcus's dignity attacked in this way affected her in an unexpected way. She had never witnessed a confrontation so charged with racial tension. The man's words were sharp, full of prejudice and hatred. He continued to insult Marcus without caring who was listening. The atmosphere of the restaurant, once so refined, was now dense with the tension of confrontation. David, keeping his cool with effort, faced the older man who hurled racist and venomous insults. "You people have no respect," the man hissed, his face contorted with hatred. Marcus's indignation was palpable, but he stood firm, his words charged with dignity. Jessica watched from her table, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and revulsion. The confrontation reached a critical point when Marcus, in a firm voice, asked for respect. The customer's response was a final insult, something so vile that it caused everyone around to hold their breath. Marcus, with quiet dignity, decided it was time to leave, leaving the client and Jessica with a bitter taste of their own actions. Marcus, visibly distraught, maintained a firm posture despite his trembling hands. The client exuded arrogance and contempt, every word an insult loaded with racism and superiority. Jessica watched with a mixture of fascination and disapproval. She didn't sympathize with the waiter, but she also didn't appreciate the customer's lack of decorum. Deep down, she knew that this moment would be etched in her memory like a bitter taste of a night that began perfectly. Suddenly, a wave of uneasiness swept through the refined environment. Voices rose near the bar, one charged with despair while the other was cutting and dismissive. Jessica leaned forward, intrigued by the commotion. The other customers began to notice the conflict. Murmurs of curiosity and discomfort spread through the room. Jessica, however, was focused on the scene, eager for every detail. She loved feeling the adrenaline rush of tense situations, especially when she wasn't directly involved. Marcus, usually calm and professional, showed signs of tension. The client, an older white man, seemed determined to provoke. What Jessica didn't know was that this moment would be a turning point not only for Marcus but for her as well. The waiter, Marcus, faced a customer with a rigid and defiant posture. Something was out of the ordinary, and Jessica couldn't help but feel a growing curiosity about what was happening. Within her own company, Jessica implemented a number of measures to ensure an inclusive work environment. She created diversity committees, offered regular training on unconscious bias, and set clear goals to increase minority representation at all levels of the organization. The work environment began to transform, reflecting the values of inclusion and respect. She continued to work closely with organizations that promoted diversity in areas such as education, health, and employment. Jessica founded a foundation dedicated to supporting inclusion initiatives, funding projects that aim to reduce disparities and promote social justice. The foundation quickly gained recognition for its positive impact. Jessica's learning journey has been ongoing and profound. She knew that true transformation didn't happen overnight, and she was willing to take the time to truly understand the complexities of inclusion and equity. Jessica's commitment also extended to her personal life. She made sure to surround herself with people who shared her values and were willing to learn and grow along with her. Jessica knew that inclusion was not just a professional goal but a principle that should guide all areas of her life. Jessica's old social circles were divided. Some of her longtime acquaintances accused her of being a hypocrite or of making these changes out of self-interest. Others, however, saw the sincerity in her actions and began to reconsider their own attitudes and prejudices. Jessica was willing to lose some connections if it meant doing the right thing. Jessica's transformation did not go unnoticed by society. While some applauded her efforts and saw her journey as an inspiration, others remained skeptical and critical. Jessica knew that changing deep-rooted perceptions and attitudes wouldn't be easy, but she was prepared to face these challenges. Jessica's commitment to inclusivity became the cornerstone of her new life. She implemented programs and policies that aimed not only at inclusion but also equity. Jessica believed that true inclusion meant ensuring that everyone had the same opportunities for success and prosperity. Jessica's new path also led her to reevaluate her personal relationships. She reconnected with friends and family, sharing new perspectives and encouraging discussions about prejudice and privilege. These conversations were not easy, but they were necessary to create an environment of mutual support and growth. On the other hand, communities that had previously viewed her with suspicion began to make room for her. Jessica's sincerity and commitment to change earned her respect. She began to be invited to speak at community events and collaborate with local leaders. Her willingness to learn and contribute was seen as a sign of true transformation. Society's reaction was a reflection of the complexities of social change. Jessica understood that she couldn't please everyone, but she remained focused on her goal of promoting inclusion and equality. Every step in her journey was an opportunity for learning and growth, both for her and those around her. Jessica began to frequent marginalized communities, listening to their stories and understanding their struggles. She knew that true change began with understanding and respecting the experiences of others. In addition, Jessica began investing in startups and social ventures that focused on inclusion and empowerment of minorities. She believed that supporting these businesses was an effective way to promote economic equity. Her involvement was not only financial but also strategic, offering guidance and resources to ensure the success of these initiatives. Jessica found a new path in her life, guided by principles of fairness, equality, and empathy. Her personal journey transformed not only how she saw the world but also how she interacted with it. Jessica's new path was filled with challenges but also opportunities to make a difference. She dedicated herself to learning more about the realities faced by those who were previously invisible to her. Jessica participated in workshops and therapy sessions where she was able to explore her own experiences and how they shaped her worldview. She was committed to deconstructing these views and adopting a more inclusive and empathetic perspective. Jessica collaborated with community leaders and nonprofits to develop scholarship programs and mentorships for youth from marginalized communities. She knew that education was a powerful tool to break the cycle of poverty and discrimination. These programs began to show promising results, with many young people reaching new opportunities. Confronting her prejudices was a crucial step for Jessica. She understood that change starts from within, and that acknowledging her own flaws was key to being able to help others. Jessica was determined to keep learning and growing, turning her weaknesses into strengths. Jessica's transformation did not go unnoticed. Gradually, she began to gain the respect of new communities and regain the trust of some old allies. Her sincerity and dedication were evident, and this began to open doors that were previously closed. As time passed, Jessica found a new form of power. It was no longer based on status or privilege, but on the ability to inspire and support others. She found deep satisfaction in her new purpose, something she had never experienced in her previous life. She also implemented diversity policies in her own company. Jessica worked to create an environment where everyone felt valued and respected. She encouraged the hiring of people from different backgrounds and offered diversity and inclusion training to all employees. The cultural change within the company was gradual but evident. Jessica's support for diversity was not limited to direct action alone. She also used her public platform to advocate for inclusivity at forums, conferences, and events. She shared her own transformation journey, inspiring other business leaders to follow her example. Jessica knew that every step counted in creating a more just and equal world. Programs she supported were helping young people from marginalized communities achieve academic and professional success. The success stories were a constant reminder of the positive impact she could have. Jessica faced criticism and mistrust, both from her old social network and from the new community she was trying to make sense of. But she was determined to keep going, knowing that true change comes with persistence and humility. She also rebuilt some of her personal relationships. Friends and family, seeing the sincerity in her transformation, began to get closer to her. Jessica found support in new friends who shared her values and her vision of a more just and inclusive world. Jessica's redemption was not only about gaining the forgiveness of others but also about forgiving herself. She learned to accept her mistakes and used them as a force for good. Her journey transformed her profoundly, and she was more determined than ever to continue on that path. Jessica's journey to redemption was long and full of challenges, but she was determined to keep going. She knew she couldn't erase the past, but she could work to build a better future. Every action, every decision was made with the intention of correcting mistakes and learning from them. Jessica began to see tangible results from her efforts. With her fresh perspective, Jessica committed to supporting diversity in a meaningful and lasting way. She used her position to create initiatives that promoted inclusion at all levels, from education to the workplace. Her goal was to ensure that everyone had a fair chance of success, regardless of their backgrounds. An essential part of Jessica's journey was confronting her own prejudices. She went through a rigorous process of self-examination, identifying and challenging the beliefs and attitudes she had previously taken for granted. This process was painful but necessary for her transformation. She began to realize the subtleties of racism and classism that permeated her life. Over time, Jessica began to see her humiliation not as a defeat but as an opportunity. It was a chance to grow, to learn, and to correct the mistakes of the past. She was determined to use her experience as a catalyst for positive change. She began to engage with organizations that promoted diversity and inclusion. She attended seminars, listened to stories of marginalized people, and learned about the complex realities they faced. Jessica was determined to use her position and resources to make a difference. With a new purpose, Jessica began working tirelessly to promote inclusion and equality. She utilized her network of contacts and financial resources to support important causes, founding scholarship programs and mentoring initiatives for underrepresented minorities. Jessica also became an active voice at public events and conferences, sharing her own story of fall and redemption. She believed that her experience could serve as an example for others, showing that it is possible to recognize mistakes and make significant changes. Jessica also began to have difficult conversations with people around her. She discussed her own biases openly, encouraging others to do the same. These conversations were often uncomfortable, but Jessica knew they were essential to bringing about real change. The reflection brought up memories of times when she mindlessly perpetuated the same kind of behavior she witnessed that night. Jessica realized that she had spent her entire life in a bubble of privilege and ignorance. Jessica, now with a new perspective, felt an urgency to change. She wanted to better understand the world around her and the people who, like Marcus, had struggled against enormous odds. Reflection was the first step in her journey of personal transformation. Determined to change, Jessica made a crucial decision. She resigned from her position on the company's board, recognizing that she could not continue to lead without first correcting her own failures. This decision was met with shock and surprise by her colleagues, but for Jessica, it was a necessary step. Jessica was forced to confront the reality of her situation. She lost the respect and trust of many, and her reputation was tarnished. The fall was not only professional but also personal. She realized that her actions and attitudes harmed not only her but also those around her. Jessica's downfall was swift and relentless. News of her behavior at the restaurant spread quickly, and she soon found herself at the center of a scandal. Friends and colleagues began to distance themselves, and her position in the company was put at risk. Everything she valued seemed to crumble around her. Jessica also reached out to Marcus, seeking his guidance and support. She knew she still had a lot to learn, and she wanted to do it authentically and honestly. Marcus, seeing the sincerity in her efforts, agreed to help, offering her advice and introducing her to a network of people committed to change. The decision to change was not easy. Marcus, despite his moral victory, did not leave her helpless. He offered her advice and guidance, showing that the fall could be a starting point for reconstruction. Jessica, despite everything, felt grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow from this experience. Jessica's fall was a time of deep regret and reflection, but it was also a moment of hope. She knew she had a chance to redeem herself and make peace with those she had wronged. The journey would be difficult, but she was determined to move forward and make a difference. After her fall, Jessica found herself in a state of deep reflection. She spent hours revisiting every detail of that fateful night, pondering her actions and their implications. The image of Marcus maintaining his dignity in the face of insults haunted her thoughts. She began to recognize how shallow and prejudiced her worldview had been. Marcus, dressed in an impeccable suit, exuded confidence. He was not just a waiter but a successful businessman, owner of the restaurant, and several other ventures. Jessica, still in shock, could hardly believe the transformation she witnessed. Marcus was in his element, showing the true extent of his influence. He revealed that he had worked tirelessly to achieve his position, facing challenges and prejudices every step of the way. Jessica used her voice to spread this message of hope in her lectures, articles, and daily interactions. She emphasized the importance of compassion, respect, and positive action. She encouraged others to reflect on their own biases and take concrete steps to promote inclusion. Jessica used her new position to make a real difference in the world. Her commitment to diversity, education, and community development transformed many lives and inspired others to follow her example. Jessica's trajectory proves that regardless of the past, everyone has the ability to change and do good. The inspiring conclusion of this story is that change is possible for anyone willing to face their failures and work hard to right the wrongs. Jessica's journey reminds us that empathy and understanding are key to building a better world, and that with courage and determination, we can overcome any obstacle and achieve our goals. Jessica's message of hope was not just an abstract theory, but a daily practice. She showed through her actions that each person had the power to make a difference. Small gestures of kindness, acts of justice, and long-term commitments were all important steps on the journey to a more equal world. Jessica and Marcus's story is a powerful life lesson about resilience, transformation, and the power of empathy. From a beginning marked by prejudice and arrogance, Jessica transformed into a passionate advocate for justice and inclusion. Marcus, with his dignity and strength, was the catalyst for this change, showing that true greatness comes from facing adversity with grace and determination. Jessica knew that the fight for justice and equality was ongoing, but she was optimistic about the future. The message of hope she shared was a call to action, a reminder that each of us can contribute to building a more just society. Most of all, it was a testimony that change begins with each of us. Jessica and Marcus continued to work together, inspiring and promoting social justice. Their stories are a testament to the fact that with effort and heart, we can transform our lives and the lives of those around us. May we all find inspiration in their journeys and commit to making a difference in our own world. Jessica's message of hope resonated in every action she took. She believed deeply in people's ability to change and grow. Her own transformation was proof that with determination and empathy, it was possible to overcome prejudices and build a better future. She planned to launch new educational programs that aimed to empower young people from marginalized communities. These programs included not only scholarships but also training in leadership skills, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Jessica believed that education was the key to unlocking the potential of every individual. Jessica was also involved in community development projects. She supported initiatives that improved infrastructure, created jobs, and promoted sustainability. Her holistic approach aimed to not only solve immediate problems, but also build a strong foundation for future growth for communities. Jessica's future was a reflection of her personal transformation. She was determined to use her privilege and resources to create a lasting impact. The promising future she envisioned was not just for her, but for all those who, like Marcus, had fought against adversity and deserved a fair chance. Jessica found new purpose in her daily actions. The satisfaction she felt when she saw the positive impact of her work was unparalleled. Each success story, each barrier overcome by those she helped, reinforced her commitment to the cause. Jessica was not only redeeming her past, but also building a legacy of transformation. Jessica's new life was challenging but extremely rewarding. She knew there was a lot of work ahead, but she was ready to face each obstacle with determination and empathy. The personal transformation she experienced was not just a career change, but a complete reinvention of who she was and what she stood for. Jessica's future was full of promise and opportunity. She continued to expand her inclusion initiatives, always looking for new ways to positively impact society. Jessica not only dreamed of a more just world, but was actively working to build it. Over time, Jessica established a new life, grounded in the values of fairness and inclusion. She dedicated herself fully to philanthropic work and social activism. Her routine now included meetings with community leaders, visits to social projects, and participation in events that promoted equality. She also maintained a balance in her personal life. The relationships she cultivated were based on mutual respect and shared values. Jessica surrounded herself with people who supported her on her journey and who were equally committed to social justice. This new circle of friends and allies was essential to her continued evolution. The repercussion of the case not only highlighted the issues of inequality but also showed that change was possible. Jessica and Marcus's example encouraged others to reflect on their own attitudes and commit to creating a more just world. Their story became a catalyst for a broader dialogue about inclusion and equity. The repercussion was vast and profound. Jessica became a prominent public figure in the equality movement. She was invited to speak at conferences and events where she shared her journey and the lessons she learned. The transparency with which she approached her past and her determination to make a difference inspired many to reconsider their own attitudes and actions. Jessica and Marcus kept in touch over the years, developing a relationship of mutual respect and admiration. Marcus continued to be a mentor and a source of wisdom to Jessica as she worked to implement the changes he had inspired. Marcus's influence was a driving force in Jessica's journey, guiding her towards a more just and equitable future. Jessica often reflected on the lessons she learned from Marcus. He showed her the importance of resilience, courage, and dignity. Marcus was a constant reminder that true strength came not from power or privilege, but from the ability to face challenges with integrity and grace. Marcus also received recognition for his resilience and success. His story of overcoming became a symbol of hope for many who faced discrimination and prejudice. He used his platform to continue advocating for inclusion and justice, collaborating with Jessica and other community leaders. Marcus's influence also manifested itself in Jessica's actions. She sought to honor his legacy by working tirelessly to promote equality and inclusion. Jessica wanted to ensure that Marcus's struggles and achievements were not in vain, but rather an inspiration to many others. Jessica and Marcus's story gained widespread media attention. The audience was intrigued by Jessica's transformation and Marcus's unwavering strength. Articles, interviews, and debates emerged discussing the impact of the case on issues of social justice and equality. Jessica's role in the change was multifaceted. She was a leader, ally, and a continuous student. Her commitment to change was reflected in her daily actions and her relentless desire to learn and grow. Jessica knew the journey was far from over, but she was determined to continue making a difference. She encouraged the creation of spaces where people could share their stories and experiences in a safe and welcoming way. These spaces allowed people to connect on a human level, fostering empathy and solidarity. Jessica believed that by fostering these connections, it was possible to overcome barriers and build a more united community. Marcus had a profound and lasting influence on Jessica's life. His dignity and strength in the face of adversity served as a powerful example of what was possible to achieve even in the most difficult circumstances. Marcus not only opened Jessica's eyes to the injustices around her, but he also inspired her to take action. Jessica began to incorporate empathy into every aspect of her life. In her business meetings, she struggled to understand the perspectives of her colleagues and employees, creating a more collaborative and inclusive environment. In her personal interactions, she sought to be more understanding and supportive, strengthening her relationships with friends and family. Jessica also worked to create strategic alliances with other organizations and community leaders. She knew that systemic change required collaboration and partnership. Together, they developed programs and policies that aimed to combat discrimination and promote opportunities for all. Jessica also used her foundation to fund projects that documented and celebrated these stories. She supported the production of films, books, and exhibitions that highlighted the experiences of marginalized communities. These projects not only educated the public but also provided a platform for those voices to be heard and valued. The power of empathy profoundly transformed the way Jessica saw the world and interacted with the people around her. By putting herself in the shoes of others, she was able to better understand their struggles, fears, and hopes. This capacity for empathy became the basis of her actions and decisions. She became a public advocate for inclusion, participating in panel discussions, writing articles, and using her platform to educate and inspire. Jessica wasn't afraid to talk about her own flaws and the transformational journey she had taken. Her transparency and sincerity resonated with many, encouraging others to follow her example. Jessica took an active role in promoting change in her community and beyond. She utilized her influence and resources to support causes that promoted social justice and equality. Jessica understood that making a lasting difference required a sustained and dedicated effort. She began sharing these stories in her talks and public events, giving voice to those who were often ignored. Jessica believed that by amplifying these voices, she could help foster greater understanding and empathy. Each story was a reminder of the work that still needed to be done and the impact that small actions can have on people's lives. Rescuing humanity also required Jessica to confront her own flaws and prejudices. She continued to work on her personal growth, seeking to be a better ally and advocate for those who face discrimination and marginalization. This commitment was a constant reminder that the rescue of humanity began with herself. Marginalized stories became a central pillar of Jessica's work. They reinforced the importance of seeing the world through different perspectives and recognizing the humanity shared by all. Jessica was determined to continue learning and growing through these narratives, using them to inspire meaningful change. Jessica realized that rescuing humanity was essential to creating a more just and equal world. She understood that by recognizing and valuing the humanity of each individual, it was possible to build bridges of understanding and cooperation. This rescue began with small actions and gestures of kindness that cumulatively could have a big impact. Jessica was also involved in initiatives that promoted human dignity in all aspects of life. She supported housing, health, and education projects that aimed to improve the quality of life of the most vulnerable people. Each initiative was a way to affirm the intrinsic value of every human being and to fight against systemic injustices. By sharing her journey of empathy, Jessica inspired others to do the same. She spoke about the importance of listening and understanding, of connecting with others on a deeper level. The power of empathy was not just a lesson she learned, but a practice she strived to live daily. Empathy also guided her philanthropic work. Jessica developed programs that not only offered financial support, but also took into account the emotional and psychological needs of the people they were helping. She understood that true help went beyond material resources and involved genuine care for people's well-being. Jessica enrolled in courses, read extensively on the subject, and sought guidance from experts. She participated in seminars and workshops where she learned about the history of discrimination and the ongoing struggles faced by diverse communities. These events not only broadened her knowledge but also connected her with others committed to change. Jessica found a sense of community and support in her learning journey. Jessica's learning journey has been transformative. Every new knowledge gained and every story heard shaped her worldview and reinforced her commitment to social justice. She understood that education was an ongoing process and was willing to continue learning and growing, using that knowledge to make a difference. Jessica found that marginalized stories were a powerful source of learning and inspiration. By listening to these stories, she was able to better understand the daily struggles faced by those living on the margins of society. These narratives revealed the resilience, courage, and determination of people who, despite adversity, continued to fight for a better future. Jessica also dedicated herself to listening. She spent most of her time listening to the stories of marginalized people, understanding their experiences and challenges. This practice of active listening was crucial to her understanding of the complex realities and needs of the community she wanted